All right, Dan, this is not about today. It's not about the challenges that you have now coming and facing at the office every day. But let's go back to when you burst on the scene with that end-to-end drive in the NCAA playoffs and people found out who Danny Ainge really, I know a lot of people knew it, but it really came to the consciousness of everybody. I'm sure that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, I remember the NCAA tournament my senior year, and it was against Notre Dame, and they had a powerhouse of a team, and we had just come off a big win at UCLA, and had struggled a lot during the game. They had run a box-and-one defense on me, and so everywhere I was going, there were two guys following me, and so that was the most free I was the whole game. Was at the end of the game, we were down a point, and there was 8 seconds to go, and I got it on the run, and was able to move full court and sort of free myself and made the lay-in. And I think it was because it was Notre Dame, the fact that it was such they were a team projected to do very well, national TV, and got a lot of notoriety, and people still talk about that play.
Well, that was my first question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people still talk about it because...
That's because you're old enough to remember.
That was really not kind. It was unkind, but it's okay. It was fair. But you kind of did burst on the national scene with that.
Yeah, I think that, so I had actually won the College Player of the Year award before that drive, and had made All-American honors and things before that play had ever happened. But I think that's maybe when people in Boston might have known who I was.
Totally. So you're saying we were a little behind the curve.
I was saying people in Boston aren't paying much attention to what's going on in Utah.
That's still the way it is now,
I know.
Of course.
Right.
But I can remember this, and you can tell us about how you gravitated to baseball, what made your decision. But I do remember Red at the draft, okay? It was Bob Ryan and Red. And Red was up at the desk, and he was getting a hold of Ryan because he came back from making the pick, okay? And he goes to Ryan like that we got the baseball player. So fill in the blanks as to what caused Red to do that and what you had to go through to make your career decision.
Well, so boy, that's a long story actually.
We'll kind of shorten it up.
Okay, I'll shorten up a little bit. When I was finishing my college career and I was in the draft in 1981, I was being talked to by all the teams in the NBA, and it looked like I was a projected player somewhere between 3 and 8 or 9 in the draft that year. And so all the teams up in the top 10 of the draft were talking to me and looking at whether I was going to play baseball or basketball because I had a baseball contract. Well,
with Toronto
Blue Jays, and I liked baseball and felt like I was turning a corner, and really had never given baseball a full time because I was always going from college basketball to pro baseball. And so it was tough, and I wasn't in love with the NBA. Back in 1981, I loved the Celtics and the Lakers. They were the great teams, and I enjoyed watching that, but I wasn't really high on the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets and the NBA.
Different game.
And the NBA as a whole. I mean, you're talking, because I had this experience of playing in Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium, and and I felt like I was going to have a good career in baseball. So it wasn't an easy decision. So I had all the teams asking me about what my future lied, and at that time I said, well, I have another year left on my baseball contract, and so what I'll probably do is go through this NBA draft, not be able to play for a year, and then I'll be able to decide after one more year of baseball what sport I want to go. So that's obviously a very risky proposition for a team to draft you high, with the idea that you may not get out of your contract, first of all. Second of all, you may not even want to play pro basketball. So Red, who had 3 picks in the top 31 picks of the draft, and in Red's fashion anyway, Red told me he was going to draft me with the first pick of that, and so I was anxiously awaiting. Red was the only one who said, "Oh, forget that. We're going to draft you. We're going to take you. If no one else takes you before us, then we're going to definitely draft you." And so I was anxiously awaiting what was going to happen that day. And I had a baseball game that night. I was in Chicago. And I went to the draft and sort of snuck in and was watching the draft. They had a draft on a big board in a hotel in downtown Chicago. And I was watching it. And I didn't get drafted, but they drafted Charles Bradley out of Wyoming, who was a guy I played against and who was a terrific young talent. And then with their next pick, they drafted Tracy Jackson out of Notre Dame. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe they're not going to draft me. This, it is a risky thing, so I'll just. And so I left the hotel to go to the baseball game and get ready for the game, and I found out later that the Celtics had drafted me. And so then it just became a contract issue and with a big battle between the Celtics and the Blue Jays as to who had my rights. The Blue Jays won the court case in New York. They had my rights. My contract was ironclad, and then it became a money issue, a negotiation with the Celtics and the Blue Jays for my rights. So looking back, the Celtics, had I not been drafted by the Celtics, or the Lakers, I grew up in the West, and I just thought those were spectacular franchises, and I think I might not have left to go play basketball in the NBA.
Do you go back and retrace it and say, well, I know you are where you are now, and you've been so successful not only as a player but as a coach and a manager, etc. But do you go back and wonder what life would have been like if you'd have stayed on that baseball track?
Not really.
Yeah.
I sometimes, like if I look at one of my baseball cards that someone will come, I think you can buy for, 100 for 1 penny right now. But if you look at the back of one of those baseball cards, you sometimes go, dang, I know I was a better player than that, and I could have made it. But other than those kind of things, I think that I would not change anything. No, I loved my time in Boston and in Portland and in Phoenix, and I've loved my experience in the NBA.
You don't know how hair loss feels until it happens to you.
If you're struggling with hair loss, there is hope. With the amazing solutions at Hair Club, you can go from this to this. Call within the next 5 minutes to receive your free information kit and reserve your free diagnostic analysis, which will help us determine which solution is right for you. And if you act now, you'll receive $250 off any hair loss solution. Hair Club, old proven hair loss solutions. Call or go online now.
The internet's great for buying vehicles, right? You get all the up-to-date pricing, plenty of details, and you can read hundreds of reviews about our dealership. That's good for us too, because at Banks, a lot of old-fashioned elbow grease is how we make sure to stay #1 in the modern world. Google us, and you'll find ratings and reviews that are tough to match by any dealership anywhere.
Lease a 2017 Chevy Silverado 1500 double cab for only $249 down and $249 per month for 39 months. Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Remember the first day you came into Boston as a Celtic, you were over. So I remember practicing at Boston College. And we tried to get video, this is getting Ainge video was like primo. ML Carr said, he called him Danny Angel, as was ML's thing. But then Johnny Most said you were the baby-faced assassin. So how do you you were Danny Angel to the Celtics, but to the rest of the league, the baby-faced assassin.
Yeah.
What was that? Which one are you?
Johnny called me the Mormon Mauler and the Mormon assassin. And the baby-faced assassin. I don't know. I guess I was a little bit of all of those things. I felt like, I grew up in a family that was very athletic. My father was a terrific athlete, a 3-sport athlete in college, and I had 2 older brothers that, 3 and 4 years older, that made life very difficult on a young little brother. And, I had no choice to be tough and just to survive in our family. athletically, and so I feel like I was all of those things. I think that I was a different person off the court, but on the court, I felt like I had to play for survival.
Well, but when other players bite your finger, I mean, that's one of the great moments. I don't care. It may have been preseason. I don't even remember. But Tree Rollins, you know the story. Did he bite your finger, or did you bite his?
Well, you know,
Come on, this is the time to own up.
Right,
because
right.
It's all
I got nothing to hide now. But in fact, I'll show you. There's my scar.
It's not pretty. No. Okay.
He almost bit my finger off, but. You know, we got into a brawl. He had been throwing some elbows, and I went and tackled him in the middle of a nationally televised game in the Boston Garden, but on national TV they actually had the shot of my finger in his mouth, you know, and I think they just invented the telestrator that time, and they circled, you know, my finger in his mouth, and then the next day on the back of the Boston Herald it said. The headline was "Tree Bites Man."
Yeah, that's great.
And so I don't know how some people think I bit Tree Rollins, but it's pretty well documented.
But you've heard that,
and I've got the scars.
Right? Yeah. Right.
I guess they just thought the little guy, you know, bit the big guy.
Well, but you had that reputation of being. But yeah, it's a reputation you obviously enjoyed, and I think you felt you needed to have that, and you weren't popular in other arenas, right? I mean.
Right. So I was, you know, as a high school kid, I wasn't popular in other places. As college rivalries, you know, I mean, you're never popular in the other arenas, and so I really wasn't unpopular in other arenas until that incident. So the first few years in Boston, it really wasn't that way, and then in about 1984, that incident, and then. Don Nelson had, you know, said it was my fault that this had happened, and that's why I think people sort of thought that it was. And I remember Red, how mad he was at Don Nelson, you know, this former Celtic of, you know, blemishing a Celtic player, you know, just making things up, and so I think people got the story turned around then and there, and so, but you know, it's funny about Red because. You know, Red would compliment you, but Red was hard to give compliments. I mean, he didn't compliment you all the time, but he gave me the greatest praise when I would get in a fight or when you would do something like that. He loved instigators. He loved people that would instigate, you know, not necessarily fighting, but, you know, physical play.
Yeah.
And so he loved that part of it. And I could score 30 points in a game, and he'd give me a pat on the back, and you know I could like start a brawl in a game, and he'd like be coming and you know giving me a big hug.
So did it? I mean, how much did it honestly bother you when you became hated? That's a strong word, but
Right.
Fans are fans, and
Right. So you know I think that I was used to it. You know, like you said, growing up in high school. I mean, I had death threats when I was a high school athlete growing up in Oregon.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it was pretty intense, and so I wasn't really
that bad a guy. I mean,
No, I think that it was just that you know, when you get a lot of attention, and you know, I think a lot of times when you come into, you know, when you're Tom Brady and you come into an organization in the 6th round, you know, you're not really hated by anybody, and you work your way up. You come in and you're Peyton Manning, and you're expected, and you're sort of a golden child. You know, there's more resentment, and so there's a lot of publicity surrounding me, and so you know you don't have a chance to. You're fighting hatred and resentment right out of the gate. And when I was drafted in baseball and you know went straight up to the big leagues, you know there's resentment, and so you know you learn to deal with some of that, and those are challenging. It's challenging though. Nobody wants to be booed everywhere they go, but at a certain point, I don't remember what it was, probably at least a year. I learned to turn it into fun. And I learned to have fun with the opposing fans, and I actually enjoyed playing on the road, and I loved the camaraderie that I had with these fans, even these rabid fans. And one time I was playing in Utah, and these fans, and this is Utah where I played college ball, although it's in Salt Lake, which is where our college rival was, University of Utah, but these guys were going crazy. I mean, their faces were beet red, veins were sticking out of their necks, and they were just attacking me the whole game. And then after the game, I'm walking to the bus, and these guys are waiting, and they have my jersey, and they have pictures, and they want me to sign this stuff. And it just sort of like an epiphany was like, this isn't personal.
Yeah.
This is just the game, and the fans are just having fun. And so from that point on, I was able to just have fun and enjoy this banter back and forth with the fans, and I actually learned to relish it.
Plus you had, I wouldn't say they had your back, but Lee played with a pretty good group of players that,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you were with a poor team, it might have been a whole different experience for you.
Had I played with a poor team, I don't think anybody cares.
True.
And a matter of fact, when I was traded to Sacramento, eventually nobody cared anymore. And that's one thing I love about Boston is, I mean, it's not a fun place to lose, but it's a great place to win, the best place to win, and people are very loyal. And but there's so much intensity in Boston, and yeah, if I wasn't playing with Larry Bird and McHale and Parrish and DJ, I mean, yeah, nobody would have cared. I was the guy that they didn't like on the team.
Yeah, you were the,
And so
took the focus away from them.
It was fun. It actually was a fun experience.
And I'm sure ML could use the break too, because people hated him too.
ML had a reputation too, yeah. So that was, I took ML's spot, I guess.
The internet's great for buying vehicles, right? You get all the up-to-date pricing, plenty of details, and you can read hundreds of reviews about our dealership. That's good for us too, because at banks, a lot of old-fashioned elbow grease is how we make sure to stay #1 in the modern world. Google us, and you'll find ratings and reviews that are tough to match by any dealership anywhere.
Lease a 2017 Chevy Silverado 1500 double cab for only $249 down and $249 per month for 39 months. Chevrolet. Find new roads.
You don't know how hair loss feels until it happens to you.
If you're struggling with hair loss, there is hope. With the amazing solutions at Hair Club, you can go from this to this. Call within the next 5 minutes to receive your free information kit and reserve your free diagnostic analysis, which will help us determine which solution is right for you. And if you act now, you'll receive $250 off any hair loss solution. Hair Club, old proven hair loss solutions. Call or go online now.
What was it playing with the big three and all those guys in Walton and all those guys that really were, the best of the best?
Well, I mean, it was a highlight of my athletic life for sure. I mean, having a chance to play with such great players, and everywhere we went, there was so much attention around the team.
Make you better?
And it made me better. It made me feel like, I always thought of myself as a really confident person when I was a kid growing up, and in athletics, I was very confident athletically. And when I got to the Celtics, there was a whole nother level. I mean, Larry Bird's confidence was way more than my confidence, and so I learned to even be more confident. And I don't think I ever reached Larry's confidence because I didn't have his talent, of course. But it was such a joy to play with, and we had so many characters. I mean, M.L. Carr was a character, and Cedric Maxwell was a character, and Kevin and Larry had their own personalities that were funny, and Robert and Dennis Johnson. I mean, when he came to our team, he was a riot. But strong personalities, and it was all those guys have
Lucky
gone.
the coach survived.
Yeah, it was a tough team to coach.
I mean, really. Throw it out to get the ball to Larry.
Right. So I think that we had a really good coach in Bill Fitch who taught us a lot of young players how to play and how to come together, and then I think Bill was sort of he was a tough coach, and I think that KC came in and sort of now we had this great foundation, and I think that the '86 team was the best team in basketball history.
Yeah,
but that's just my
reason.
Unbiased opinion.
No, for good, you can make that case because you'd have a lot of people that know a lot about basketball, not from Boston, that would agree with you.
Well, we were 50-1 at home that year. I mean, including the playoffs. We had 50-1. at home, and the one we lost was a buzzer beater in a game against Portland. But and that was just an amazing ride. And Walton, what a character he was, and Quentin Buckner, and we just had a great group of guys that knew basketball, wanted to win, and I think we had one of the best leaders in basketball history in Larry Bird. And it just, I smile every time I think I got this picture of the old starting five here, and I mean those were fun times. And Kevin is probably my closest friend in all of sports. Kevin and I talk and communicate regularly.
Well, it was the right place and the right time, and I would also push the envelope a little bit and say it was the right way to play the game. Now I'm going to ask you, in today's game, could you play in today's game? I mean,
Sure, I could play in today's game. Yeah, sure.
You dominate, right?
No, I mean, hey, listen, I was, I played, in Michael Jordan's heyday, when, had significant performances against Jordan, and in their championship run, lost in the finals to him twice when I was with Portland and Phoenix. Didn't seem that long ago, and I think he's still, the best player that's ever played. Yeah, I absolutely could play in today's game.
What was
all our guys could play in today's game.
Was winning the title as a general manager? I mean, how does that all compare? Was there any one game, any one shot? You probably remember every shot. It's like golf. You remember every golf shot you made, but you couldn't figure out how to get home. Those are the kind of things, the kind of brains we have. But
well, when you're a player. So in '84, when we won the championship, that was an amazing thing, because I didn't think we were. Looking back, and even in the moment, I thought the Lakers were better than us in 1984, and to just come together, and we should have lost the first two games. Henderson makes a great steal, and
right.
That sort of brought us back, and then DJ hits a big shot in Game 4, and to win that series was spectacular. It was a great feat, and I'll never forget that moment. And then 1986, I felt from the first day of training camp that we were the best team. Like, nobody can beat us. And Houston gave us a little bit of a battle in a Game 5. We sort of lost our focus. We were up by 20, and we lost that game. But we won in 6. And won the championship, and I thought that's again the best team ever. But in 2008, the championship was unique for me, and probably more memorable, because when you're part of like every person's life, as a player, you're still focused on your own preparation. Sure, you have a team and you have camaraderie and have relationships that I've had throughout my life. But as a general manager, and the life story, and know what it took to get Rajon, and know what his struggles and battles are, and what he's going through, and the pressures he's feeling, and how KG's Hall of Fame career, and Paul, the struggles he's had, ups and downs in Boston, and Doc, the 2 years before, endured like one of the worst losing streaks, and you have all these individual stories, Leon Poe's story, and on and on. It's more meaningful, because you feel for every one of them. It's way bigger than you. And as a general manager, it's fun to be part of, but it's way more fun to share that joy and to really feel it for everybody else that's involved.
I can see that. Well, you're in a different place in your life, and you look at those things differently.
Right.
It's like watching your kids win, as opposed to.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. You really care for those kids, and Doc, and our owners who invested and changed the culture of the Celtics, and no, it was just it was a highlight.
What I'm a little more mundane. Banners to the rafters. You don't care about that, do you? Or do you?
What do you mean?
Well, what about your banner to the rafter?
What banner to the rafter? My banner to the rafter? My banner to the rafter are right there, 1984,
No.
1986, and
See, that's what I mean.
2008.
I said it was a mundane issue, but and certainly now that you've become you've won as a general manager here and you won as a player here, what's to prevent that from happening?
Well, because I don't deserve it.
You would say no?
I would say no. I have said no, and
They've asked you?
Yes, and our ownership has been very kind to me and treated me with great respect, as have the Boston fans. But listen, I feel like those are sacred players, and I think that those are reserved for the very best. And personally, I think that there was a time in the Celtics' history where they were given out too easily.
Yeah.
And not to disrespect anybody that has their number retired, but those are sacred. Those are sacred things, and I think that they need to be considered. And I'm telling you, I don't deserve to be up there.
Well, it's not. Well, you could make the decision, couldn't you? You're the general manager.
As long as I'm sitting in this seat,
Wait, don't you think it's time? I got up there in the band. Well, maybe when you retire, you won't have much to say about it.
Yeah, maybe.
You're going to turn them down then?
As long as I have any say in anything, it won't happen.
Very political and very. It makes a lot of sense. Listen, I think that you've been such a great asset. And I know you have a great fondness for this area, but those of us that have had a chance to cover your career and watch you play and see how it all came together. The one question, I guess, did you guys leave anything on the table when you played? Should there have been you got three titles with Bird. Should there have been 5? It's like Brady will go back and say, hey, we should have won 5 Super Bowls by now.
Right.
But, maybe 6. But did you guys leave anything out there on the floor?
Yeah, I thought we did in 1985. I thought 1985 was our year. It was sort of interesting. 84, I thought Lakers might have been a little better than us, and we were able to win 84. In 85, I thought we were better, and we didn't win in 85, and that one probably hurts the most.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most memorable loss.
Funny that you remember the losses more than you do the wins. Yes.
Well, I remember the wins too. I mean, the wins. You do have the banners to remind you of the wins, but the losses you don't forget, and I think that the losses make for a much longer summer than the wins make for a joyful summer.
Yeah,
after you win a championship, you take a week off and you're right at it, trying to win it again. And but those losses are tough. They're really tough. And as was 2010 loss was very tough. You lose a game 7 with a lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, those are tough.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. But I'm glad we just talked about you. You're a legend, really. I mean, whether you agree to it or not, it's not your call.
I thought you were the legend.
Yeah, well, I'll turn that one down too, just like you turn the banners. Okay, nice job, Dan. Thanks a lot.
Bob.
Continued success.